I am Jo Dickinson. I work at Hodder, and I am very, very fortunate to be Will's editor. And we thought it would be interesting to talk through some of the response that we've had to Firstborn, which published recently in hardback, ebook, and audio. And there've been a lot of conversations online about some of the twists in the plot. Um, and when we were working together on the book, the twists and the pacing and the plotting was one of the things that we spent a lot of time thinking about and working on. So I thought it might be interesting to talk about that reaction now, and just get a sense of, try and give a sense of how we approached it and how it came to be. And most of that obviously, Will, came from you because you delivered an absolutely cracking book in the first place. And I quite often tell people that I read it in one stint because I just couldn't put it down. And I was floored by both of the twists in the book, to the point where I came downstairs afterwards and my husband said to me, "Are you all right? You look really shaken." And I've edited quite a lot in my time, and to be surprised like that twice was just so brilliant and so exciting, because it's what an editor, it's those shifts that you think, oh my god, this is amazing, and I'm so lucky because I'm the first person to read this. So thank you for that, Will. That was, it's a memory that will stay with me, which is one of the many reasons that I do this job. So that was brilliant to start with. But I was curious to know how you found the story and how you worked your way into it, and how you know that you're ready to start. Are there signs that you think, okay, this story is ready, I should start putting it down?
Well, thank you, Joe. I've got to say thanks to you and the copy editors and the proofreaders, especially on this book. We'll get into this more later on, but
Yeah,
I can't take too much of the credit, especially for this book. I think it was a real team effort. But and hopefully this chat's really interesting to people, because we're going to get into the nitty gritty of how these books come about. And as a reader, I'm always interested to see other writers talk about their process. So where do I start? Is it takes a long time for me to get going. Like, I normally have, let's say, 4 or 5 ideas that I'm excited about each year, and they'll come. They might all come in the same month
mm-hmm.
when I'm having kind of a fallow period, and I'm building stuff, and they will come
Mm.
that bit. And then over the next 12 months, they will filter out. I'll just kind of forget them apart from 1 or 2. And that's how I know I've got something, is if I'm excited by it and I have that ooh kind of feeling at the beginning, and then I can't let it go, and there's a particular character or a particuar scene that sticks in my head, and I'm just constantly kind of intrigued and want to know more myself.
Mm.
So it's normally about a year plus between the idea and the first draft.
Okay.
And that's me just kind of thinking about it in loose terms, trying to understand the character in a kind of a outline, a sketchy kind of way at the beginning. And then as I get closer and closer, like 3 months before, I'll start visualizing the scenes a little bit clearer, and I'll start driving. When I'm driving through the forest, I'll start talking little snippets of dialogue, little like
Mm.
in the voice of a particular character, especially the protagonist, because I want to know how they talk. I want to know how they react to things and how they see the world. So I'll start talking. I probably shouldn't admit to these things, but I start talking in their voice a little bit, and and then I'll carve out like 5 or 6 weeks in my schedule where I don't do anything else apart from write the first draft, and I'll know that's coming. So I'll know that's coming. Like this year, it was in January.
Mm-hmm.
So from November, December onwards, I was just getting more and more terrified and excited that I was going to write that first draft. And then over Christmas, I was very mentally absent, I would say, my wife would say. And then, but after Christmas, I was just very much trying to get acquainted with that character, the main character, and a few of the other characters, and also feel the mood of the book, because that's where I start from, is that protagonist and the mood, the atmosphere. And then the kind of 5 or 6 days leading up to the start of the first draft, I'm never sure of the exact day I'll start. It's when it feels right, and I feel like there's this head of steam, this momentum, and then I'll sit down and begin.
Okay. And then it just comes.
Yeah, by that point, I've spent so much time with it in my
Yeah.
head I haven't written much down because I want it all to be quite fluid and changeable as I go along. I don't want
Yeah.
things set in stone.
Yeah.
But then by that point, yeah, it's like an exorcism at that point. It just floods out in about 4 weeks generally. The last thing to end was 3 weeks. I think Firstborn was 4.5 weeks. Slightly longer book. And I'll normally write 2 chapters a day or 3 chapters a day. And then about halfway through, I might have a day off where I'm just kind of thinking and letting things settle so I understand the second half. And then once I'm done, so with the last first draft that I wrote, that was back in middle of February, I finished it, and I haven't touched it since. And I'll probably read that end of June, beginning of July.
Yeah. Just the day off that you mentioned, sort of partway through the first draft. Have you ever had a day off and thought, well, that's not where I thought I would be at this point? Like, genuinely taken by surprise by the experience?
No, because I think it's kind of gradual, and like I say,
Okay.
it's quite fluid. So I let myself make little deviations and changes all the way through. I roughly know the main beats of the story. I roughly know where I'm going to be at the middle and the end of the beginning, but I don't really know what links them together.
Yeah.
And the anchor point for me is always that protagonist. So as long as I'm comfortable that I know the protagonist, then I feel like I'm happy wherever they take me. And things definitely surprised me, especially in Firstborn. I didn't know that the final twist was coming until about, let's say, 10 chapters before. So maybe 4 or 5 days before I wrote that. I didn't know that. I never planned that. And then I was suddenly like, I can't remember if I was driving or if I was in the house, but suddenly I was like, oh.
And we can do this.
and it was, and it was almost so obvious. And I don't know, maybe I had a little seed of it in the back of my head and I didn't think of it, but as soon as I realized what was actually going on, I was very excited to get to that point. And I think that some reviewers and interviewers always say, well, are you not in control of this process? You're not in control of the story. And I say, it's not like black and white. I'm in control of it, of course, I'm writing it, but things surprise me, and protagonists do things I don't expect sometimes. And yeah.
Well, I'm gonna have to go and let my dog out, I'm sorry. So once you've got your first draft, what then? You wait, and you go back to it.
Yeah, first draft's done. I'm exhausted at that point, and I normally have a couple of days off after that because I'm physically very tired. And then I will often have the next deadline coming up, as you know. I'll be proofreading the book from the year before, or copy edits or something, or I'll be launching a new book. So then at that point, I'm just doing something completely different, and I forget about the book. I literally, I'm. It's not that I'm sick of it, but I'm exhausted by it. It's such an intense process.
Yeah.
So I put it away, and then I wait 4 months. And I don't think about it too much then. And then when I read it again, so when I read Firstborn, like 5 months after I wrote the first draft, it's nice to have that much time. It means that it's like reading a book, like somebody else's book. I haven't remembered all of those little things. And I'm always surprised that it kind of fits together in some way.
Yeah.
And that I know there's a lot of work to be done, but I try not to make notes at that point in that first read through. I just read it like I'm picking up a book out of a library.
Yeah. That sounds it sounds like a pretty intense process, but it also sounds really productive. And I find this a bit fascinating because nobody writes in the same way, and everyone's process is completely different. And I think it's finding that way that works for you in order to get into the heart of the book and what you want to say with it. How many more times will you go through it before you're eventually ready to part with it?
So when I read it, I'll then read it again and make kind of general notes, like high level notes, and then I'll start rewriting it. And for me, rewriting is like there's two parts to each rewrite. It's one part is reading it through and making notes on a pad and on the manuscript. And then the second part is me going through and implementing those changes. And that'll take me maybe, I don't know how long it takes for each one of those cycles, maybe a month or something.
Yeah.
Because it's difficult to explain the schedule of the way I write books, but each one seems to take about 3 years, even though there's a book that comes out every year.
Yeah.
So with Firstborn, I have a wife to read, and then she'll come back with a few notes, and then it'll go to Kate, my agent, with a few notes, and then it'll go to you. And so it's been rewritten a lot of times by them.
So I can say that this is one of the books that I've edited where I've needed a spreadsheet, which I quite enjoy having a spreadsheet to work out timelines and work out the key beats in the plot, and to make sure that once a reveal has happened, that everything else that the reader now knows still works and is still in the right place in the book. And we spent a lot of time thinking through that. And Linda, who was our copy editor, was amazing at that bit of it as well. Do you have that mapping out process, or is that something that comes with the edits once we've got hold of it?
Maybe I should have, but no, because plotting doesn't come naturally to me as much as the rest of it. So I'm much more, as a reader, I'm much more obsessed with character and sense of place and atmosphere. So that's where I start from. I just start with that in my first draft, and I have the beats of the story and major plot points, but like the finessing of the plot comes much later. So I'll often need to go back, and I always, when I start rewriting, I'll have a chapter list. So I write down each chapter number and what happens, like a one-liner of what happens. Yep. And then I'll make sure that it all has the right kind of balance and flow, and that it works kind of when I zoom out. Really grateful to Linda and the spreadsheet, and we needed a few spreadsheets in the end, up on all the details, way better than I can. So yeah, we needed to get everything to fit.
Yeah, spreadsheet was our friend for sure. But it was, it's one of the, again, I love the fact that we needed a spreadsheet for it. To me, that fact that, piecing it together was such an intricate process was also incredibly exciting.
I enjoy that too, and we often talk about the fact that my standalones are all very different, and I think they're going to continue to be quite different. And I like the fact that I learn new things with each one, because everyone has different challenges after I've finished the first draft, and that's good because that keeps me on my toes. So.
Yeah, absolutely, and it means I think the overall feeling of reading a Will Dean novel is the same and is constant and is there, that intensity and the focus on character. But the story can move in many directions and have any number of surprises in it, which means it's a different experience each time, which is incredibly exciting.
I think that's just because I'm still deep inside. I'm still like a very bookish, shy 8-year-old kid who's very excited about stories. I get that buzz that I've never had in any other job that I've had, where I write a first draft. It's me telling myself a story that's never existed.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's brilliant. Have you been pleased with the reaction to Firstborn?
Yeah, I've been. You never know what to expect with any book, and the last thing to burn was a more serious novel, so the feedback was different. With this one, the feedback has been a lot of like, oh my god, a lot of emojis and a lot of people. I tweeted about this the other day. People will get in touch when they're at a particular point in the book, and that's never happened before. I normally get someone gets in touch at the end of the book when they finish the whole thing, but this has been very nice. Like, some people get in touch twice, some people 3 times. There's like 2 or 3 things that might shock or surprise or make you question things. So that's been nice, and it's made me realize as well. Sometimes social media for a writer is like there's pros and cons. Sometimes you realize it's sucking out some of your time, and and your thinking time. But at the same time, that contact you have with readers is wonderful, and I love it. I love being able to talk to them. And you know, the old writers 100 years ago never had that.
Yeah, and I love that sense of instant reaction. And I love, you know, I think the more people read it, I find it fascinating that it is those 2-3 beats that everybody has the same reaction to. That really instant shock.
Exactly. And you know, I read maybe, I don't know, 50 to 100 books each year, and there'll only be one maybe that really has that impact for me. And I only need one a year, because I can't read that over and over again. It's just not going to be satisfying. But if I read one a year, and it's like a Shutter Island or a Sharp Objects or a Fingersmith, and it's exciting as a reader to have that feeling that you didn't, like, the whole world has changed. It's very exciting.
You tweeted about that the other day as well, asking people for books that had genuinely shocked them. And I saw Fingersmith. I can remember where I was when I read Fingersmith for that same reason. Were there any books in that list that you hadn't read, or that you thought, actually I should go back and
tons
that again? Yeah.
I always think I'm well read, and then people, when I send a tweet out like that, there's so many books I haven't read. And there's some I made a note of for sure, and there's some that I didn't even think of as twists, and then there's some that I would classify as a reveal, not a twist, but some people would see it as a twist, and I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
I remember where I was when I read Gone Girl and Fight Club, and anything where there's a seismic shift. You know, it's the same. And I think that's kind of a lesson to us all. Watching The Sixth Sense, it's such a brilliant twist. And then you realize, you know, the director went on, and he's brilliant, but then he went on to try and do seismic twists in everything, and it's hard to do. And I think you should only try it very, very occasionally.
Yeah, because then you're waiting for it, I guess.
Yeah, and you just can't do it in a satisfying way. Like, I can't come up with those big twists more than every 10 years or something. I'm not going to try.
Yeah. It would be remiss of me not to ask you a little bit more about the new book, the one that you're writing at the moment, and how it's going.
The third standalone. It's going well, thank you. I think I'm going to send it to you tonight or tomorrow.
Hooray! That's brand new information.
And that's also been a brilliant experience, just like a learning experience as well. I think every book is. And yeah, I'm excited by it. It's the book that I want to read that's in a bookshop. So that's why I read it, why I wrote it, is because it's the thing that I want to read. And so I delivered that to you, was at the end of last year, and then you came back and you gave me some really useful kind of macro pointers and ideas. And then I've gone back now, and I've kind of hunkered down for a long time with it and pulled it apart. And I think I deleted in the end 20,000 words from it. And then I added 25,000 different words now.
Okay.
And it's changed the whole tone of the book, I think. But the and the setting and the themes are still there.
Yeah.
But you know, it's sometimes you need an outsider perspective. You need an editor that you trust, that you can rely on. It's such a valuable thing. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, no, thank you. I have to say, I'm very excited. You just made my weekend. I'm can't wait for this. And I know that I'm going to be transported to an amazing place with an amazing storyteller. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for this chat. I always love talking about plotting and structure and the writing process. So it's been really brilliant to talk to you. Thank you, Will.
Thank you, Jo, and we'll do it again some other time, maybe with a different aspect of writing.
Yeah, absolutely.